We are go for asset management over property management. And then the second thing is we do a monthly webinar to keep our owners up to tabs on market, laws. We train them all on a monthly webinar that we do live with them so they can ask questions. Like last month, I had my estate planner on and we went through questions and we analyzed things and talked to them about it. And then we've had landlord tenant act laws lawyers come on. That way our owners can get a little bit of sense of what's going on. And to my knowledge, we're the only ones that do that in Arizona so far.
In today's episode, I'm speaking with Tiffany Rosenbaum, owner of Rosenbaum Realty based out of Phoenix, Arizona. Tiffany has grown her property management company to over 600 doors and has a very interesting story about how she literally started on food stamps and eventually went on to build Rosenbaum Realty. So without further ado, let's get straight to the interview so you can learn from Tiffany, her journey, and how she got to where she is today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to talk about all the great things in property management, business, and life. I actually got started in property management because out of a necessity. My husband wanted to become an entrepreneur in 2009 after we graduated college. And if anybody remembers 2009, I mean, half the market was out of work. It was the crash. No one was buying anything. And we started a Savvy student card, which was a discount card. And we were in Utah and he wanted to start it. So we're like, okay. And I was like, I'll be a supportive wife, even though I knew what entrepreneurship took. And we decided to move to Arizona. And as soon as we crossed the Arizona state line, it was about as fast as money stopped. And we ended up on food storage, had no money for heat in our home, no food in our fridge. It was a really, I'm going to say a really bad and trying time. A lot of tears at night trying to figure out how to provide for my family as I had a 3-month-old baby. And the biggest failure in life for me was when I felt like I couldn't provide for my child. And I would go knock doors and nothing. And as no one was buying anything. And when you're selling something for $25, let's be honest, you got to sell a lot to be able to make ends meet. And my dad came into town one day and he looked at me and he's like, what's going on? And I was like, we're struggling, but we'll be okay. And he turned to me, looked me dead in the eye and said, I don't care what you do. You got to figure out how to get into real estate. And I'm like, I have to do what? I can't even provide food for my family. I mean, we're on food storage, which you couldn't pay me to go back on, or my husband. And so he left and that kept on coming through my head. And I had a friend come over the next night, didn't give him food because we didn't have any. But he started talking about real estate. And I was like, real estate, tell me everything. What do I need to know? And he was like, I help people get into real estate. And he said, I was like, okay, so what do I need to do? He turned to me and he goes, you got to find someone to loan to you. Sub 2 wasn't out a lot. A lot of these other ways to get into the market wasn't out. And it was like a dagger to my heart. I got to find someone to loan to me. Who's going to give me money when I can't even provide for myself? And so I started looking for a mentor and I found some of them teach me how to analyze properties, which I think is the most important thing in real estate anyways. And over, my mentor would say, no, not good enough. And let's be honest, 2009, the owner of the property couldn't pay you enough to take the property. But every time I go back, I realized later that he was teaching me discipline, that it's not an emotion. When you're buying real estate, it's fact-based. And you have to be very, very, very diligent to be able to walk away if it's not good. And he was teaching me that. Then finally, I found a mentor to loan to me and my husband and my family, and we started to invest in real estate. And even as we started to invest in real estate, we stayed on food storage for about a year, but realized, wait, hold up, there's a business here. That there's not very many property management companies that know how to analyze properties and actually invest in properties and in real estate. And so one of our first biggest clients was actually, we found them on Facebook because a contractor had walked off on them and it was a property next to the one that we owned. And so we were like, hey, can we just put a for rent sign out in front of your property? Because I mean, it's hurting ours at this point. And so we put a for rent sign out and then we said, hey, do you mind if we just try to rent one of your units? Just let us get a unit in there and you can take it. And person in there, finally, he said, you know what? Can you manage it for me? We're like, yeah, no problem. So we signed up a contract and about a month later, another property. We're like, how many properties does this guy own? And then about about every month he started bringing on properties. He owned over 40 doors.
Okay.
And so that was our first biggest client, and then it started rolling. But there was a difference because we knew how to analyze properties and realize, okay, are you underwater? How are you doing? So we didn't have the churn that a lot of people had. So that's how we got into real estate. Love real estate. I've always loved real estate.
Okay. And from that point, was it like we're going to start a property management company, or what was the thought process there?
Yeah, so when we first started that one, my husband had gotten his real estate license and we were underneath another broker. And very short afterwards, the broker was like, look, we had to separate ways. And so actually, my brother is a broker out in Texas, and I called him and I said, hey, and I have a lot of respect for this. Yeah, I love him to death because I called and asked something that you shouldn't call and ask. I said, hey, would you mind flying out, taking the broker's test, and letting us hang our license underneath you until we can get a broker's license up? Because in Arizona, it's really hard to do property management underneath someone else. It's just not conducive. And we were going to be out. And so my brother came out and did it. And we started building a property management company. But that was the first one. It was Rosenbaum Realty Group. And we decided this was the company to be born. And so we started building it from there.
Okay, interesting. So once your brother came to town, let you use his broker license once he passed the test, what did it look like from there? So now you had the 40 doors from the one investor. How did you go from there to, let's say, your first 100?
Okay, so the first 100 was really grinding. I mean, we were grinding. It was made every mistake in the book. My husband and I, we weren't going to conferences yet. And I was doing the books, and he was doing the owners, and I was doing the residents, and we were tag teaming this and working around the clock, to be honest. And we were also investing still because what we did was we had a mentor. And so every time we bought a property, we looked at refinancing it, even though, and that took a lot because every bank told us no for a long time. After about the 10th no, finally we found a bank that would loan to us and start refinancing for us. And so we were generating new properties as we were generating other clients. And we always looked for investors because we really understood the investor. And so we wanted to help build generational wealth for investors. And so it was a grind, continue Facebook leads. We didn't pay for advertising. We didn't start paying for advertising until actually this year, to be honest. But we would network, we would Facebook leads, we would knock on doors or find the owners of the properties that were next to ours. And so we built that way.
Got it. Crazy.
Yeah.
So up until what door count were you able to get to just through kind of boots on the ground efforts?
500, well, 550.
That's purely through networking?
Yeah, we didn't spend any advertising dollars.
Just to make sure I'm fully understanding that, when you say you didn't spend any advertising dollars, I see that you create a lot of content out there for YouTube, for TikTok, for Instagram. Do you count that in there, or are you?
I only started that this last year, so
Okay,
that is brand new.
awesome.
So, but I think that's a big mistake that I did, to be honest. Really, we should have been advertising from the get-go. We should have been doing so many other things from the get-go, but we were too focused on we had to have the margins. If one of the things that you hear a lot in the property management industry is you need to be a net profit of this margin needs to hit, this margin needs to hit. The problem is the owner of the business really needs to go strategically in and go, okay, who do I need to hire to get to the next level? Because every single time you hit a plateau, you have to hire someone and your income's going to go down. So let's talk about Walmart. Their net profit is 2.37% this last year. Okay. The reason they're able to do that is because strategically planning, hiring the people, and growing. Property management owners are the same way. You can't go in and go, hey, I have to have a net profit of 43% or 50% because that's what the industry tells me. No, you need to go in and look at, okay, this is my goal. How do I get there? Strategically, what am I planning? If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It also, I guess, depends on how you are looking at the business as well, right? If your goal is growth and you want to get to a high number and then figure out, okay, how do I fix my profit margin? Versus if you're trying to create more of a lifestyle business where you're like, you know what, I'm perfectly fine if I manage 150 doors, but at a really healthy profit margin. So there's different, different angles you can go at it as well,
A
which is
100%. Because if you have 100 doors, you're creating a job for yourself. You can't hire enough staff to actually manage those properties on their own. Because every time something happens, you're going to be jumping in, you're going to be dealing with owners or residents or something. You have to get it to a certain level and hire enough so you can be out of the day to day. Like we hear all the time, and E-Myth talks about working on the business instead of in the business.
yeah,
There is a point where you actually have to get to a certain level to be able to do that full time.
yeah,
So
100%. Exactly. We're on the
love
same
it.
page there.
Yeah.
So you're in a competitive market, right? Phoenix, as
Yes.
you know, there's literally thousands of property management companies vying for the same business as you. You weren't doing any type of advertising. Like, how do you get yourself to stand out compared to your competitors?
One thing that I can say that not a lot of people know that we're doing is I go in and I analyze the property for the owner. Like because I've had owners go to me, "Hey, I'm positive," and I run my analysis. I'm like, "You're not." And then once the truth comes out, they're like, "No, we're not." And 40% of owners, it's actually a little bit higher than 40%, leave because they're negative. So if I know that an owner is coming on and they're already negative, we need to have that conversation before they come on. So that differentiates us very heavily because most people just bring on an owner and be like, "Hey, let's manage the property." We are go for asset management over property management. And then the second thing is we do a monthly webinar to keep our owners up to tabs on market laws. We train them all on a monthly webinar that we do live with them so they can ask questions. Like last month, I had my estate planner on and we went through questions and we analyzed things and talked to them about it. And then we've had landlord tenant act laws lawyers come on. That way our owners can get a little bit of sense of what's going on. And to my knowledge, we're the only ones that do that in Arizona so far and Utah that do a monthly webinar.
So that's with existing owners only, I assume.
It's a closed off. We do not allow now prospects. We actually bring a lot of prospects on because of this webinar, and they're like, "You do a monthly live webinar and you bring people on?" And yes, we do.
And how were they hearing about you in the first place? Was it just word of mouth from investors you were working with?
So yes, and then we do Google ads, and then also you've seen me do social media, and then also I speak on stage. This year we've honed in a lot on advertising and getting our name out there more.
Got you. So obviously you've scaled the business now. I think you said around 600 doors. Is that correct?
Mhm. Yes, and then
So,
we just opened up in Utah. This is
okay.
new, so we're really excited about that.
Okay. So as the business grew, what would you say some of the pivotal points were in terms of difficulties you faced along the way?
I have to laugh because I think I had to hit every difficult point. I mean, some people learn from other people, and I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna learn on my own." Um, my biggest thing, probably my biggest struggle, is hiring people, growing the team, and I think that's actually everybody's biggest issue. As I've talked to many mentors that are really big in the business. Um, But a pivotal point was realizing my team was the rocket fuel behind my business, and it wasn't me. I wasn't going to be able to grow it to the size I wanted, that I needed a team that we all aligned. And I made every mistake. And how that starts, though, is the hiring, onboarding, training process. And I'm really big into that because our hiring process is so extensive. Like I had one guy, I just hired him, just gave him an offer letter, but he had to come into our office 4 different times on 4 different uh where they would come in. He came in for an interview with 2 different people. Then he came and walked the office while I wasn't here, asked my entire team questions. And then he also came back and did a little bit of a work interview. And so then I offered the job. I
Okay.
find that so many people, and this is where I struggled. I was like, "Hey, just put someone in the seat. It's okay. They can know what's in my head, right?" But in reality, that's not the case. And the people that are coming in and looking to be hired, they're putting their best foot forward until you get them out of their regular routine and you can see them in different lights. And so we do a very extensive hiring, onboarding, and training process to try to get them where it's a win-win. We don't want to be selling someone to come work for us, and we don't want them to be selling us. It has to be like, "Hey, we're a work family, we're a work team, and we're building a championship team to get to the next level."
So
But I've made every hiring mistake in the book, and so that's why I do it this way now.
yeah. So what does your team look like now to manage 600 doors? How many team members do you have? What are their roles? Can you take us a little bit through what that looks like?
Yeah, so we're a pod structure. So on my numbers, I look at all my team members throughout all my companies. I have multiple companies. We have 35 team members throughout all companies. But we're
Just to
pod
back you
structure.
up there, when you say multiple companies, are you
Yes.
talking a brokerage, property management division? Like, what do you mean by that?
So we have a maintenance company, we have a property management company, we have a short-term rental company, we also have a gym. So we have multiple companies. Yeah. So we venture out a little bit. Like I said, I'm an investor first, business in all these different things second. Um, so but what was the question? Sorry.
Basically, who are your team members? What are their roles? What does that look like?
So we're in the pod structure. So we have 4 people to a pod. So and a pod can manage anywhere from about 400 to 500 units. And we have 2 pods right now. That's in Arizona, and so it's a property manager, assistant property manager, a resident specialist, and a maintenance liaison between the maintenance companies. And so then the property manager, they deal with the owner, they communicate with the owner, they make sure the owner is good. The assistant manager helps with lease renewals, and then the resident special helps with balances, evictions, and then the maintenance, make sure the maintenance is being done on time.
Okay, gotcha. So let's back up a little bit. We were speaking earlier about your content creation. You said you only started that this year, which with the
Yeah.
amount of content you have out there is pretty impressive, I must say. What does your schedule look like that? What is your thought process behind what content you're going to create? And most importantly, what has that done for your lead flow?
So content creation is very much the long game. It's not something you're going to see overnight or even within a week or even within months. It's you're getting your branding out. And I don't and I'm not a marketing director. I'm not analysis on this, but what I can say is it has helped me buy companies. It's helped me generate leads to be able to bring owners on. I haven't been able to quantitate it 100% because usually the lead comes from somewhere else, but somehow we find out that it's tied back to the social media or tied back to something. And so it's more about the branding, get your name out there. Because, like, if you're going to go to the store and you're going to buy something, usually you buy something from what you've seen somewhere else first. Like, you went to the store because you saw it. And so, same thing goes with Google Ads or social media that we put out. It's to just get our name out there and bring awareness of what we're doing and educating the people. And so my schedule for social media is every Monday I do podcast and recording, and I do it just once a week. Podcast is about every twice a month now because I'm trying to dial it back a little bit. I want to get to be where I'm only doing once a month, but right now it's about every week.
Okay.
And we go back and forth on that because I'm trying to get to once a month. That's my goal, but every week right now.
Okay. And just to be clear on that, that's a podcast for your own company, right? Not going on another person's podcast.
Yes, yes. So I created a podcast, and it's the road less traveled. It's about entrepreneurship. It's the road of entrepreneurship because, and it's the truth, and it's the grueling that people don't talk about, all the hardships of entrepreneurship. And so I created that. And then also the social media posts that I do, and all that's done on Monday because I have so much to do on the other days. I try to stay out of the content creation the other days. And then I have a team. So my team on content creation is I have a marketing director, I have 3 editors, and then I have a part-time person that helps post and take care of other things.
Okay. Got it. And having multiple businesses, obviously wearing multiple hats, how do you find time to kind of structure things so that you're giving ample time to each business? Do you have a CEO for each business? Is it you that's kind of calling the shots for each one and you have an implementer? What does that look like? Because obviously, running a gym versus a property management company are completely different.
So I run everything off of numbers. So um I have a team out of El Salvador that has gotten everything on Power BI. So all my companies run into one software, and I can see numbers on a daily basis to see where we're at. And then I have one-on-ones with management level people every Wednesday. So from my Wednesdays are crazy because I go from 7 a.m. to about 7 p.m. I hit every one-on-one from all my companies, all management level. I would say I'm the CEO. No, we're not big enough to have a CEO yet. Because yeah, I'm still fighting that line of when we want to hire a CEO.
Got it. So basically, you have a manager, let's say, for each one though, and
Hmm.
you're having
Yes.
one-on-ones with those managers every
Yes.
Wednesday, and they're kind of keeping you up to speed on what's going on. You're helping direct the ship.
Yes. So they'll come to me. So how I deal with my managers, there's they're to bring the issues, they're to bring the resolution. If we need to discuss it, if there's a lawsuit or something, which happens in real estate. So then they'll level that up. We'll discuss it. And then they'll make a plan really to go implement. It's just I'm a sounding board on a few things, but one-on-ones and we go over numbers and how we're going to improve our numbers and how we're going to continue to elevate to the next level.
Okay. And on the property management side, you mentioned you like to work with investors. I'm assuming that means you prefer to work with one person that has multiple properties versus, let's say, the accidental landlord or the person that owns one or two rental properties. Is that correct?
Yes, 100%. So the average property management company has one owner to every 1.5 properties.
Yeah.
Well, we manage about 600 and I have 80 owners.
Okay. How,
So
yep.
go ahead.
How do you deal with the business risk there?
I actually have less turnover.
Okay. Because you're able to pay them more attention.
No, it's actually that most investors, I'm not dealing with the flipper investors. I'm dealing with the long-term generational wealth investors. And when you build those clients, and what they don't leave 9 times out of 10, they want to hold this forever. So this goes down to their kids, this goes down to their grandkids. So you're building the generational wealth. And so when you have that, you'll have people sell every once in a while, but in the long run, they usually stay. And so our turnover rate is very low.
Okay, interesting. It makes sense, especially given your background and the fact that you can kind of stand out from most property management companies and giving them like a detailed analysis before they even sign on to your services. Um, I've heard both sides of the coin. At the end of the day, I think there's valid reasons why you would want to work with someone that has 50 plus doors, and you would, valid reasons why other businesses might be like, you know what, that's too much risk. I don't like that. But at the end of the day, it's what works for you. So there's multiple ways that you can run a successful company,
Mhm.
and you're playing into your strengths there. So I think that makes sense. Um, During your time in property management, obviously you've been doing this for a number of years now. What is one crazy story you can share with us of something that happened to you?
Oh man, I have a lot. Oh, okay. I'm gonna open up about one, and
Okay.
I'll play my cards. So we have a maintenance company, right? I had a one of my maintenance. I have both stories, so we can go on the property management side alone. But here's one that people will go, "What?" I have a maintenance company, and so we had a leak at one of my properties that had a two-story, and so we sent out our plumber. He went in, he did the valve in the bathtub, his second floor. He wetted it down like you're supposed to afterwards. After you solder pipes, you have to make sure they wet down so there's no issues. Well, about an hour later, I get a phone call that the building went up in flames. What
Okay.
we found out was the plumber did everything right, which we could say, and so we had documentation, so that was good. But the when he soldered it, there was a little bit of so a little piece of flint that caught on fire and it festered and flew down to the bottom floor. And about an hour later, went up in the smokes in the flames. And because our processes were tight knit, we were fine. And we took care of everything. But things like this happen. And this is why it's very important that things are documented and processes and procedures are in place. Um, but I mean, on the property management side, we've had a resident we evicted. We brought on a property that there was a resident and he was paying $400 a month, and it was bad. But we knew what we were getting into, and we said, okay, time to evict. And we went for the eviction. Well, we evicted the guy. He went back and he smoked the place down. He put it up in flames.
Wow.
So, I mean, we've had cars go through buildings. We've had, I mean, literally just all the way through. We've had people put things up in flames. We've had people, things happen. But like one of my mentors always says, which I love, is every day is a new problem to solve and relationships to savor, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
so, I mean, things happen, but because of the things happen, if we learn and grow from them, we get better. And so, yeah.
That's it. You gotta maintain that positive mindset because there's no doubt running a business, problems are going to happen. There's no shortage of them. And especially in a service business where you're dealing with one-on-one relationships, there's no shortage of characters out there. But at the end of the day, it's like, how do you handle those setbacks, right? How do you react to the building going up in flames? So definitely a tough situation, but obviously you're able to move forward from it.
Well, I was grateful that we had our processes and procedures done correctly and that we had documented everything, what we create for our plumbers and what they have to do, because then we could prove everything. And then at the end of the day, we could show insurance that, we could show everybody that. And at the end of the day, we were okay. I
Okay.
mean, in my gym, I've been sued for $1 million before. I mean,
Really?
yeah.
For an injury?
Oh, so I had a blind woman come in, and you can't say, hey, you can't come in because you're blind. ADA rules, and we
Sure.
respect ADA. And so we said, okay, well, we need to amend your contract so that there's at least a guideline that says that, you have to have someone with you at all times. We can, if someone can't come with you, we can have someone with you. We just need to make sure that you're safe. Well, this lady decided to be on her own one day, go in the bathroom, trip, and 2 years later, in the middle of COVID, sue us for $1 million.
Oh my gosh.
Because of our insurance company, which I'm very grateful for, they found out this lady was doing this over and over again. They still paid out a sum of money because it was cheaper than going to court. But again, documentation, documentation, documentation. And I know it sounds repetitive, but processes, procedures, documentation is what saves people in the end.
Yeah. Crazy. Crazy. That's
You haven't been sued, you haven't been in business long enough. It
yeah,
just,
I mean, yeah, I live in Canada, so it's a little bit different here
oh,
as well.
yeah.
But yes, I'm no stranger to hearing stories from our clients of being sued.
Yep.
Um, You mentioned before on Wednesdays, for example, you from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You're talking with the managers of each company. What does a typical day look like for you? Are you working 60 hours a week, or like how do you manage life and business all at the same time?
So I have three boys,
Okay,
and they're all in sports and they have a business. And so I'm managing that as well. But so today, for instance, I have my boys have a cleaning company. So
okay,
they're cleaning a short-term rental.
cool.
Um, but so I manage that. But on my day-to-day, it's numbers. I look over the company numbers because I regulate these on a daily basis. I look at them on a daily basis. I want to know where we're at on a daily basis. Um, Wednesdays are my one-on-ones. I dive those into one day because I want to be able to do other things on other days. And since I have so many other companies, I do have meetings in the other companies like Utah. It's getting up and it's a baby, so it needs more attention. And so I'm grateful for my team that allows me to do this. Without my team, it wouldn't be possible.
For sure. Do you also find time for, because I think I follow you on social media. It looks like you work out a fair amount as well, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I
Is
do.
that something that you do religiously?
Oh yes. Yeah, that is like that's my meditation time. That's my if I need a scream time, that's my alone time, my brain time. I religiously am up at 4:45, no later than 5, and I go on a run, strength training or yoga. On the weekends, I run 10 to 15 miles. It's just where I can just relax.
Yeah,
And I think every person has to find that, especially in the business. You have clients, you have things that you got to get done. And sometimes we don't give our brain the time that it needs to just go, I need quiet time. And so that's my quiet time.
100%. I think that's a good lesson for any business owner listening. It doesn't have to be working out. It can be whatever it is that allows you to just completely zone out and not think of business. You need that downtime. Your brain needs to recharge. If it doesn't, eventually, just like anything, it's going to get worn out.
Oh,
So I think
100%.
that's an important lesson there. Take the time. out of your day to make sure you have some me time where you can actually focus on things that allow you to escape from the business a little bit.
I
Um,
think what you said right there is really important because I think sometimes people start businesses up and they're like, head down. I did it,
yeah,
head down, don't move. But then you find this burnout that happens.
yeah,
And 9 times out of 10, people, what they've done is they just put one focus on and they've let family or health go. But if you don't have family, if you don't have health, what's the point of the business, right? So
exactly.
the workout or the health is really important to keep our mind sharp and stay healthy.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, you wake up a decade later with a successful business, but no family, no friends, and you're in poor health.
Yeah,
And you'll find out real quick the business doesn't matter if you don't have any of those things.
a
So,
hundred
for
percent.
sure. Um, Outside of property management, what do you do with the income you generate from property management and your other businesses? Like, how are you investing that money to grow your wealth?
Oh, I am very, very passionate about real estate. There's very few things. Actually, I would almost banter to say there's not one thing like real estate. The tax benefit it gives, the deductions it gives, the cash flow it gives if you buy right. I invest heavily in real estate and still investing heavily every day in real estate. Um, I have diversified. I do have stocks as well. I use Charles Schwab's because it's easy. I love Schwab's. I can't even say their name correctly. So, but mainly is real estate in short terms, midterms, long terms. Those are my prime focus on investing. I love real estate.
Okay. So inside the business and outside the business, real estate all the way.
I
Okay.
do. Because of what it can give back. Literally, it is the golden goose that never stops laying if you buy right. And that's why I focused on at the beginning is you got to know how to analyze the property. And my mentor, he was very much, you got to be disciplined. It's the numbers. It's nothing else. It's the numbers, location, but that's it. At the end of the
Yeah,
day, you got to be willing to walk away because you
100%.
make the money when you buy, not when you sell. That's what I've always been taught, and that's what I stick to.
Yeah, and I find especially in today's markets, you see so many people that are investing purely off an equity play, and they just get burnt. And it's like history repeating itself. It's not the first time this has happened, but it's the ones that stay disciplined, that know when to pull the trigger and when the deal just doesn't make sense, that actually building up long-term wealth for
No,
sure.
100%, 100%. I remember when I first got into real estate, the guy that came over to our house and was like, "Hey, you got to find someone to loan to you." When we got into real estate and we started investing in long-term rentals, he came to me and said, "You're so stupid. Just flip it. You can make 10 grand. You can make 20 grand. You make 50 grand." And I'm like, "No." I was like, this is not a short term gain. This is going to be my long term gain. Now, I'm not against flipping, I've done it, but the long term gain is so much more important to me. And so, I said, but you know what? Come to me in 5 years and tell me if you still think that I was dumb. And he came back in 5 years and he goes, I started doing exactly what you're doing, Tiff. I was like, you know, and I was like, let me know if you need any help. I mean, it wasn't like a prideful thing, but I was like, you got to stick to your guns, whatever's working for you. And everybody's different. Some people make millions off of flips,
Yeah,
but I've always been one that I want the money to come to me. I don't want to chase the money. Like, and on flipping, you have to always be getting that deal. On long term, once you buy, it just keeps on giving to you. And
yeah.
so that's my mentality.
Okay. Got it. So if you could go back in time to when you started your journey in property management, what is the one thing that you would change to help yourself succeed at a faster pace?
One thing that I'd help, one thing that I would do, there's probably a lot of things I'd do to be
Yeah.
honest, but the main thing is I would start my board up earlier. So when people go, you have a board, what do you mean? Well, look at Amazon, look at Walmart, look at all the big companies. What do they have? They have a board. 9 times out of 10, the board either has stock or something like that. We don't give stock, but we pay people to be on our board. And so then we sit down and every quarter they get to rampage our company and say what we're doing wrong, what needs to be improved, And what's interesting about this, people are like, oh, but what does the board help you out with? It gets really awkward when a board member is like, you are really sucking it up. Like, you need to improve here, 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 and here. These numbers are not right.
Mhm.
And I even had one board meeting. I had one of my board members turn to me and said, Tiff, you need to shut this company down because I have multiples. And I was like, you know what dagger that is to hear? This is my baby. I mean, I've worked so hard. And I sat there, I took all the pride out of it because at the end of the day, it's numbers. I
Yeah.
said, okay. I said, you're right. I said, it's not doing what it's doing and I could earn more money somewhere else. But I said, okay, why don't we make a plan? If I can't turn it around, it's gone. He's like, I can get on board with that. I said, okay, so let's make a plan. And what do you think? Where do I need to be to make sure this company thrives? So we went through the plan and we were able to turn around. It's still generating today. But my board's different. When people hear boards, they're like, okay, you just put people together. No, I have a tax advisor. I have an estate planner. I have business people in real estate. I also have business people in insurance. And I also have people that have done what I want to do. So actually, every single one of those people are a lot bigger than me, generate hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars every year and own multiple companies. So then I get to sit down with these people and it's like a little bitty mastermind in essence, but not just a mastermind. They see everything. I uncover every single penny, everything in my companies, and they just go after it. And so that's one thing that I would do. I would have started my board earlier.
On that note, how do you get someone that's doing hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue to want to even wait, spend their time looking at your company?
Sometimes you got to pay big money for very little time.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes it's just literally trying to sell yourself. Literally, like, just look, I really want this. I know you can be part of it. And sometimes people really just want to help you succeed. And so some are paid very little, some are paid a lot.
Okay.
And every year, depending on the position of the person on the board, like this year, we just completely revamped our board, got rid of some, hired new ones. Because in our industry and property management, the coaches are expounding. I mean, everybody's pretty much a coach, and that's not a bad thing. I think there are excellent coaches out there, amazing coaches. Now, don't get me wrong, I want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah.
But that coach is going to be good at one or two things.
Yeah.
They're not going to be good at everything. And do you want to grow faster? You want to get better faster? Or do you want to wait and hire someone different every year? And even a coach, whoever you start with, you have to level up with them. They can only get you to a certain level.
Yeah.
So the individual that has this company has to decide where they want to be and where they want to go. And so the board has been exponential, and it helps us grow. And it can be very awkward at times.
You need that sometimes, though.
Yes.
Sometimes you need someone to look at you and be like, this is just a dumb idea, right? It's hard to hear, but you need someone that's going to tell you the honest truth that has been where you want to be.
Yep.
Because otherwise, if it's your decision, you're more invested in it. It's harder
Mhm.
to pull it back and be like, that decision I made that I've been working on for the last 2 years was just a really bad decision, right? So we end up just going deeper and deeper into that hole otherwise.
Yep.
Sure.
It's
Thank you.
it's good to have someone look at it and not have an emotional attachment to it. Because sometimes we get a little bit emotional attached when we're working so hard at something. And as us as owners, as you and me and whoever, it's so important that we look inward and go, okay, where do we need to be and be able to take the feedback. I think feedback is the most important thing in life.
Yeah.
Be okay with it, right? I
You
mean,
have to
that's
be
how we get
coachable.
better.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
For anyone that would like to connect with you outside of, this episode, of course, where would be the best place for them to reach out or follow you?
The easiest thing is probably all my social media handles are Tiffany M. Rosenbaum, but I would say Instagram's probably the best right now. So Tiffany M. Rosenbaum, and you can message me on there, and I message back anybody that messages me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And you provided a lot of value, so I'm sure this will be great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem.